get down to negative 2% body fat in contest shape, and then I go in a bulk to 0.33% in my off season. And then I cut down again. And so when I'm in guest posing shape, I'm usually around negative 0.5%, and on stage, negative 2%. Now, add in the diuretics at minus 150% body fat.
Negative numbers, probably.
Coach Greg, in today's video, Ronnie Coleman reveals that his body fat in the off-season, when he wasn't prepared for competition, was 0.33% body fat. And you're thinking, no, he slipped up. Must have been 3.3. But I'm telling you, that's what they told him. And that was using skin fold calipers, but wait to find out what his body fat really was using hydrostatic weighing.
My body fat was so low, it wasn't even 0.5%. It was 0.33.
The best part is the interviewer looking at him. What? And so Shannon Sharp, he doesn't believe this, but he's interviewing him and he's trying to find out a little bit more.
They would dip me underwater and my numbers were negative. It was like -2 body fat.
And so here's the thing, there's something known as measurement error, and perhaps it's the fault of the calipers, or perhaps it's the fault of the person using the calipers. Now, one thing I know is this, it's impossible to have negative percent body fat, and 0.33% also impossible, as you would be dead. You need a certain amount of fat in your body in order to survive. And it's not just the visceral fat, the fat underneath your skin. There's internal body fat that your body absolutely needs. And without that fat, you would die. Now, depending on the person doing the calipers, they may have made a mistake. Perhaps it was 3.3%, but the person said 0.33. Was Ronnie Coleman actually thinking clearly at the time? Does he actually remember this? Guy might have passed him the paper and said 3.3. Ronnie didn't notice where the decimal was, said it's 0.33. But as far as being negative numbers for body fat, we all know that is impossible. But here's the thing. When you do hydrostatic weighing, they're actually using a formula to guess. That's right, guess the body fat percentage. And that formula is based on the density of your bones and lean muscle. In males who are Caucasians, on average, their bone density is going to be lower than that of people who are black. And so if you're black and you're doing a body fat testing where you're being dunked in the water, your bones might be more dense and therefore heavier, which causes you to sink and make your weight heavier than if you're Caucasian. And based on that formula, it could in fact predict that your body fat is less than 0, which of course we all know is impossible.
And then they would use these calipers on my skin. That's why I had a little bit of fat.
And so how would the caliper know if that was measuring skin fold thickness or skin fold thickness plus body fat? Depending on how thick your skin is, it's going to affect the calipers. And so, of course, using calipers, there is a measurement of error. But if you're using the calipers correctly, there is no starting point that starts at 0. You can't have 0% body fat. Even if all of your measurements were as thin as humanly possible and there were no body fat on it, it still couldn't come out as 0.
0.33, not even 0.5%.
Man, you get a cold, man. You've been in the hospital about 7 days.
I ain't never got a cold.
And Ronnie Coleman has never had a cold in his life. He's never had the flu. He's never been sick. There are people who I've met that actually are the same way. And so clearly, whatever he's done has not been unhealthy for him. I'll give him 3.3% body fat, not 0.33. This is all BS. The minimum body fat function is 2%. This is a lie. And from my understanding, it's typically about 3% body fat, but perhaps with guys who are using steroids who have far more muscle, they can actually get by with even lower than 3% body fat. But it's certainly not 0.33, and it's certainly not 0.33 when they're in their off season. Remember, this wasn't even when he was in shape. And so if he had 0.33% body fat, let's assume this is true, then at 300 pounds, 0.33% would be 1 pound of fat. 1 pound, 3,500 calories. And so if he happened to forget to eat for perhaps even one day, he would literally have no fat left. He could go for a long walk and then end up with a negative percent body fat. Only we know this isn't true. And so how could he be at 0.33% body fat and still have to diet? Where would the fat be coming from? He only has 1 pound of fat left. And so considering the fact that even sleeping you're going to burn body fat, it's impossible to be this low. It's called measuring accuracy at the time. He's just saying what they measured, which nowadays would be inaccurate, but he's not making it up. And so people don't agree with this. They're saying, what medical school did you go to where you thought you could only get down to 2% body fat. Clearly, Ronnie Coleman proves that this is wrong. And you have to agree with this guy. I mean, Ronnie Coleman proves that this is not true. He said he was 0.33%, and he said he was negative 2% when they dunked him in the water. And so that proves beyond any shadow of doubt that this guy did not go to medical school. Because if he did, he would understand that body fat can in fact be a negative number. Where did you go to medical school with the crying emoji? Well, clearly we know which person didn't go to medical school. PEDs alter body function minimums, and we can all agree that when these bodybuilders are in their last week or two of contest prep, they are far from healthy, but they don't maintain that all the times. And so bro is going to argue that because he's on the steroids, that his body fat can go far lower than the normal minimum number. But could it really be 0.33% several weeks out from competition when he wasn't even in contest shape yet? When you're on the juice, it is very possible. No, it's not. Who's never had the flu? Myself. Me. I definitely have never had the flu, and I never get flu shots. And so, interesting to read comments like this. Did he do this being all natural? Yes, Ronnie Coleman is a white, natty bodybuilder. He identifies as being both Caucasian and 100% natural. He would never have resorted to using steroids to win 8 Mr. Olympia titles. Forgive me, I haven't watched the interview yet, nor have I heard of him before. Bodybuilding is of interest to me, though. Thanks in advance. Yeah, bodybuilding is of interest to me, but I've never heard of 8-time Mr. Olympia champion Ronnie Coleman. You know who else I've never heard of? I've never heard of Arnold Schwarzenegger, C-Bum, Ronnie Coleman, or Jay Cutler, but bodybuilding, that's of interest to me. Tell me it's not of interest to you without telling me it's not of interest to you. 0.33 and negative body fat is wild take when you can't survive and visceral fat exists. And the response, you can surely survive. It was only during competition. Then he'd get back to normal. If he was 0.33% body fat at 6 weeks out, then his normal would be 1%. Ronnie Coleman was lean year round.
When I did the 0.33,
Yeah.
I wasn't even in contest shape.
Nope, wasn't even in contest shape. You thought 0.33 was my lowest. That was in the off season. That was when I was bulking. I start at negative 2% body fat when I'm in contest shape, and I bulk to 0.33%, and I do the bulk and cut all over again. I get down to negative 2% body fat in contest shape, and then I go on a bulk to 0.33% in my off season. And then I cut down again. And so when I'm in guest posing shape, I'm usually around negative 0.5%, and on stage, negative 2%. Now, add in the diuretics at minus 150% body fat.
I was like 6 weeks out, something like that.
6 weeks out, negative 0.33%. Now, here's the thing. If I were his coach and he was at 0.33% body fat 6 weeks out, I'd be thinking, we need to up the calories. We're going to have a cheat day. We're going to have some risotto, some lobster bisque. There's a reason why you don't over diet. You start to lose muscle. And if your body fat is too low, even with steroids, where do you think the energy is going to come from? It's going to come from food. And so if you're cutting, not eating enough, you're in a deficit, and you're trying to decrease your body fat, and there's no body fat left to lose, where do you think it's going to come from? It's going to come from muscle. And so the leaner you are and the less body fat that you have, the greater the likelihood your body's going to use your muscle for energy, which is exactly what you don't want. Wow. And so Shannon Sharp is like, wow, 6 weeks out, 0.33% body fat. Now, if I were interviewing Ronnie, I'd say, Ronnie, what do you think your body fat actually was? The person doing this testing, were they certified? Where exactly did they test your body fat? Did they test your bicep, your tricep, your subscapula? Where exactly were they measuring you, and how did they come up with 0.33%? And I would also say, Ronnie, you know it's impossible to be below 0% body fat. 0 is the absolute lowest. I mean, if you're 0, clearly you'd be dead. But let's assume it could be 0. You could actually be 0. It can't be negative 2, right, Ronnie? Like, let's talk about this. And so I would ask him, why do you think that is? Let's talk this over. How did they come up with negative 2%? Wouldn't you want to hear Ronnie try to explain how they came up with those numbers?
I can imagine what I'd be in contest shape.
Right.
And so Ronnie's like, you know, I can't even imagine what I'd be in contest shape. If I was 0.33% 6 weeks out, and then I lost about 15 more pounds, I mean, what percentage would I be then? And so consider this. If it was actually 0.33% and continued to diet for 6 weeks, what is he dieting to lose? There's only 1 pound of fat left on his body. Let's assume he could get rid of the 1 pound. If he dieted for 6 weeks, he's got to burn off 3,500 calories. That's going to be approximately a 600 calorie weekly deficit. And so if he were to cut down by 100 calories per day, which would be very hard to determine, how would he know if he's in a 100 calorie deficit? And so does it make any sense that he would be 0.33%, but yet the commenters, they believe it? What would you guys know? You didn't go to medical school. You don't know that Ronnie could get to 0.33% body fat at 6 weeks out in competition.
Negative numbers, probably.
And so the best part is Ronnie saying it'd probably be negative numbers in contest shape, because if it's 0.33% at 6 weeks out, then I definitely would have negative body fat percentage on stage. And you all think, yeah, it's true, because he uses steroids. And if you use steroids, law of thermodynamics, every law in the world, it goes out the window. And so there you have it. I'm certain that Ronnie knows that he can't have negative numbers, but he's reporting what they told him. Now, if somebody were to report these numbers to me, I would be arguing with them that it's impossible to have negative body fat percentage. I would also say it's not possible that I'm 0.33%. I know I'm a professional bodybuilder and I know I'm very lean, but 0.33 is impossible. And so whoever I paid to do that test, I'd be like, test me again. Give me a number that makes sense. And I would ask questions and listen to the person doing the testing and ask them to explain it to me. And if that person said that is accurate, that is what the test said, I would say you should be fired. You don't know what you're doing. And so let me know in the comments section, what percentage of body fat do you think Ronnie Coleman actually was at 6 weeks out versus on stage? And does anyone still think that the skin fold caliper or hydrostatic weighing is more accurate than my laser eyes? The hydrostatic weighing, the dunk method in the water, said he was negative 2%. The skin fold caliper said 0.33%. I'm telling you that Ronnie wouldn't have been leaner than 3% body fat. Which you think is more accurate? Now, aside from the MRI, this is the only test that I know that's more accurate than my laser eyes. And so I wish I could report that Ronnie Coleman had done the MRI scan and we'd know what his true body fat level was. But if you're going to go with what I think, I believe he was close to 3% body fat on stage. Now, there's one thing I did not consider. Perhaps Ronnie Coleman had discovered Turk Builder and GO2 Max before its first inception. If he had been on Turk Builder and GO2 Max, is it possible that he would have been in negative body fat percentage range? Maybe. I mean, we don't know. We don't know if he was on Turk Builder or GO2 Max. And so is it possible the 0.33 was actually accurate, that he had been experimenting with ecdy steroids and NMN years before its inception? And so if you're interested in Turk Builder and GO2 Max, and I'm telling you right now, it's not going to get you a negative body fat percentage, but it can give you more energy, train harder than last time, and help you to put on more muscle. Interested in these? Code Greg, 15% off. Subscribe, click the bell button, comment to boost the algorithm. Please like the video if you in fact liked it. Watch one of those two bloops. And of course, the cookbooks, the training books, the Circle Diet book, Life Circle, How to Lose Weight, Keep It Off for the rest of your life. Now, it's not going to tell you how to get to 0.33% body fat, but it's going to tell you how to get leaner than last time. Interested in these? Code Greg, 15% off. Don't forget about the HDLT clothing line, as well as the free diet and training program. You can get it on the website. And until next time, I am out.